What if the concept of the Garden of Eden is just the beginning of a much bigger picture? What if we are all part of the Creator, from the very first cell to the universe we see today? If that might be true, how do the ancient texts reveal this knowledge? Maybe the answer to our question is buried right below our nose.
In 1945, it's an intriguing date, of course, because that's the end of the Second World War. We're moving into a new era following the Second World War. The Gnostic texts are found in Upper Egypt. Almost exactly the same time, the Dead Sea Scrolls are found in Israel as well.
Nag Hammadi is a small village along the Nile River in Egypt. And a young boy was tasked by his mother to find kindling, which was in very short supply because there are very few trees, there's no forests that grow along the Nile River in that part of Egypt. Being very resourceful, he went to what he knew were old grave sites and old tombs, and he found papyrus books that were bound. These are the Gnostic texts. It wasn't until someone recognized, a neighbor recognized what it was that he had, that the Department of Antiquities in Cairo became aware, and of course they moved very quickly to preserve the remaining documents. So the Nag Hammadi Library, it is the most complete record of the Old Testament, and the reason it's so controversial is because it contains many of the books that have not been seen since the church edited them in the 4th century.
Now, I don't want to get mystical or spooky, but it's as though something is at work to not allow us to be blinded and silenced. Something is at work to allow these ancient ideas to come back into the world. And Gnosticism has indeed come back into the world. I'll try to reconstruct the situation. In the early years of Christianity, really, from sort of 30 AD onwards through to about 400 AD, there are actually many different kinds of Christians, many different sects that regard themselves as Christians, as followers of Christ, but they have very different views. Amongst those early Christian sects were a group that called themselves Gnostics. They believed that there is a divine spark in humanity. The Gnostic mission was to liberate that divine spark, to provide us with the saving knowledge, to lead us to the revelation that would help us to understand the true nature of things. Not the illusory nature that's been created to hoodwink all of us, but the real, true nature of things.
What is life for Elon Musk?
Now you can see a video game that's photorealistic, almost photorealistic, and millions of people playing simultaneously. And you see where things are going with virtual reality. If you extrapolate that out into the future with any rate of progress at all, then eventually those games will be indistinguishable from reality. They'll be so realistic, you will not be able to tell the difference between that game and the reality as we know it. Well, how do we know that that didn't happen in the past and that we're not in one of those games ourselves?
Some believe this concept of a simulated universe originated from these ancient Gnostic texts that suddenly were discovered in 1945. These lost books named the creator of the universe as an aeon named Sophia. Sophia was considered to be a frequency, and her frequency would manifest into certain humans and the material realm. This myth of Sophia has challenged some to look at the universe differently than they have before.
The manifestation of Sophia, the personification of Sophia, might be representative of fractal energy and the fact that fractal energy fills the gaps between the symmetries of the very small and the very large. And it's this energy that we're basically saying is controlling this ancient technology, that all of this ancient technology is based upon that same idea, that it goes on and on through every single ancient teaching, that this idea that there is this all-encompassing, unified, energetic field, makes a lot of sense that would be equated to Sophia. Fractal energy has a very deep relationship to the golden mean ratio, and the golden mean ratio is present in human DNA. That's what our DNA is based off of. And it's through this fractal energy and the fact that the golden mean ratio basically keeps it in check and keeps it going in a certain direction that we're able to derive a lot of new technology even today. It's something that they're beginning to rediscover, something Nikola Tesla had come across in his work. But it's interesting that these ancient civilizations were recording information like this and doing it in such a way that a parable could back up actual scientific information.
Could the ancient Gnostic texts be explaining not only the Creator, but the frequency in which the Creator exists through mathematics and quantum physics?
This third dimension is what we consider to be a holographic reality. It's not just me saying this, it's a lot of scientists have come forward now, a lot of scientists involved in supersymmetry and quantum physics, quantum mechanics, stating that the nature of the reality of the universe itself appears to be holographic in nature. So what scientists did was they did an experiment called the double slit experiment, where they put two little tiny microscopic slits and they put photons on the back, and they shot these photons through these slits. But when they weren't looking, the photon created a wave pattern on the back wall of this experiment. So they said, why? How can this be? How can individual photons create a wave pattern? So they went back and put a looking device, a camera, to see how the photons were going through these slits to create a wave pattern. They wanted to know how that could be. Well, when they did that, when they looked, it created a digital pattern on the back wall. So all of a sudden, it was a wow moment. The actual prospect of looking, in other words, conscious intervention, can change matter, can change the shape of the universe. So basically, it tells us that consciousness is really what is all that exists in the universe. The universe is pure consciousness. And what consciousness has actually done, it has actually recreated itself, or it actually split itself into pieces to experience itself subjectively. So consciousness wants to go out and it wants to create. And what it has done, it has gone out with these energies and it has created subjectively humans, planets, galaxies, so that it can experience itself from another perspective. And this is what we take from it from the quantum level in terms of these Sophia energies and some of these Gnostic energies. It appears that consciousness is the only thing that really exists and everything else seems to be an illusion.
Nassim Harameyn's been doing some really interesting work which does tie in very much to the old view of the ancients and the Gnostics, in that it explains how creation transpires. What he's talking about in more of a metaphysics or quantum level is how existence comes to be. It's cosmogeny, so it's how the cosmos comes to form, which to the Gnostics was the flow of reality from eternity into nature and back. This flow is actually represented by the goddess Sophia. She is the flow of reality itself, coming out from the pre-existent state of spirit.
But if this is true, why would this understanding of the universe and an aeon named Sophia be hidden beneath the sand for so long?
There's that movie, The Usual Suspects. There's a line in the movie.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Gnostics took it one step further. The greatest trick the devil ever played was to convince the world that he is God. In other words, from the Gnostic point of view, what we have been worshipping for thousands of years isn't God at all. It's a demonic force.
The Sumerian texts allude to the same principle that a great administrator named Satam looked over the people of the Garden of Eden. His name in the Sumerian text was the god Enlil, and his hopes were to enslave the human race. He then appears in the garden as Yahweh, the biblical god. The serpent in the garden, however, was another Sumerian god named Enki, whose desire was to free the human race through knowledge. How did this concept of good and evil get so flipped upside down?
For us to understand exactly how the concept of good and evil became an inverse concept, we must first understand the use of symbology, and specifically the symbology of the serpent. Additionally, we must examine the evolution of Earth's oldest ancient secret society known as the Brotherhood of the Snake. Amongst most peoples, the serpent plays an extraordinarily important and extremely diverse role as a symbolic animal. The primary characteristics that gave the serpent its symbolic significance were the special place it occupies in the animal kingdom, its cold, slick, and shiny exterior, its poisonous bite, and its venom that can be used for medicinal purposes, as well as its periodic shedding of its skin. It is frequently encountered as a chthonic being, as an adversary of man, as a protector of sacred precincts or of the underworld, as an animal having the soul of a human, as a sexual symbol, masculine because of its phallic shape, feminine because of its engulfing belly, and, because of its shedding, as a symbol of constant power of renewal. But the symbolic significance of the serpent goes much further back than the Bible that Westerners know today. Suffice it to say that of all the animals revered in ancient human societies, none were as prominent or as important as the snake. The snake was the logo of a group which had become very influential in early human societies of both hemispheres. In fact, it is perhaps the oldest secret society on planet Earth, spanning back hundreds of thousands of years. William Bramley provides a rather concise recount of this ancient secret society. The group was a disciplined brotherhood dedicated to the dissemination of spiritual knowledge and the attainment of spiritual freedom. This brotherhood of the snake opposed the enslavement of spiritual beings, and according to Egyptian writings, it sought to liberate the human race from custodial bondage. The brotherhood also imparted scientific knowledge and encouraged the high aesthetics that existed in many ancient societies. For these and other reasons, the snake had become a venerated symbol to humans and, according to Egyptian and biblical texts, an object of custodial hatred. When we look to discover who founded the brotherhood, Mesopotamian texts point right back to that rebellious god, Prince Ea. Ancient Mesopotamian tablets relate that Ea and his father Anu possessed profound ethical and spiritual knowledge. This was the same knowledge that was later symbolized as trees in the biblical Adam and Eve story. In fact, the biblical tree symbol came from pre-biblical Mesopotamian works, such as one showing a snake wrapped around the trunk of a tree, identical to later portrayals of the snake in Eden. From the tree in the Mesopotamian depiction hang two pieces of fruit. To the right of the tree is the half-moon symbol of Ea. To the left is the planet symbol of Anu. The drawing indicates that Ea and Anu were associated with the snake and its teachings. This connection is affirmed by other Mesopotamian texts which describe Anu's palace in the heavens as being guarded by a god of the tree of truth and a god of the tree of life. In one instance, Ea reportedly sent a human to be educated in that very knowledge. Adapa, thou art going before Anu the king. The road to heaven thou wilt take. When to heaven thou hast ascended, and hast approached the gate of Anu, the bearer of life and the grower of truth at the gate of Anu will be standing. We therefore find Ea designated as the reputed culprit who tried to teach early man, Adam, the way to spiritual freedom. This suggests that Ea intended his creation, Homo sapiens, to be suited for earth labor, but at some point he changed his mind about using spiritual enslavement as a means. If Ea was a true historical personality, as the Sumerians claimed, then he was the probable leader of the Brotherhood at its founding on Earth. The Brotherhood may have adopted the snake as its logo because of Ea's first home on Earth was said to have been constructed by a serpent-infested swampland which Ea called Snake Marsh. Another possible explanation for the snake logo is offered by Mr. Sitchin, who says that the biblical word for snake is Nahash, which comes from the root word nhsh, meaning to decipher or to find out. Despite all of their reported good intentions, the legendary Ea and early Brotherhood clearly failed to free the human race. Ancient Mesopotamian, Egyptian, and biblical texts relate that the snake was quickly defeated by other custodial factions. The Bible informs us that the serpent in the Garden of Eden was overcome before it was able to complete its mission and give Adam and Eve the fruit from the second tree. Ea, who was also symbolized as a snake, was banished to earth and was extensively villainized by his opponents to ensure that he could never again secure a widespread following among human beings. Ea's title was changed from Prince of Earth to Prince of Darkness. He was labeled other horrible epithets: Satan, the Devil, Evil Incarnate, Monarch of Hell, Lord of Vermin, Prince of Liars, and more. He was portrayed as the mortal enemy of a supreme being and as the keeper of hell. People were taught that his only intentions were to spiritually enslave everyone and that everything bad on earth was caused by him. Humans were encouraged to detect him in all of his future lives, or incarnations, and to destroy him and his creations whenever he was discovered. All beliefs and practices named after his various appellations, Satanism, devil worship, etc., were to be made so horrific and degrading that no right-thinking person would or should have anything to do with them. He and his followers were to be viewed by human beings with nothing but the utmost loathing. This is not to say that Ea was actually portrayed by ancient Sumerians as a saint. He was not. He was described in Mesopotamian text with distinct character flaws. Enki was a genius who could get things done, but who was often careless about anticipating the consequences of how he went about accomplishing his goals. By engineering a work race, Homo sapiens, Ea wound up giving his enemies a powerful tool of spiritual repression. Ea then appears to have compounded the blunder by founding and/or empowering the early Snake Brotherhood, which, after its reported defeat, continued to remain a powerful force in human affairs, but under the domination of the very custodial factions that Ea and the original Brotherhood were said to have opposed. History indicates that the Brotherhood was turned under its new custodial gods into a chilling weapon of spiritual repression and betrayal, despite the efforts of many sincere humanitarians to bring about true spiritual reform through Brotherhood channels all the way up till today. By reportedly creating a worker race and the Brotherhood of the Snake, Enki had helped build a trap for billions of spiritual beings on Earth. The Brotherhood of the Snake has been the world's most effective tool for preserving mankind's status as a spiritually ignorant creature of toil throughout all of history. Perhaps the most paradoxical of lessons is that our God, in a physical sense, Enki, is the one who we today call the devil, whereas our oppressor, the one who was dead set against the advancement of mankind, the one who literally regarded us as disposable pieces of trash, is the one we now worship as our God, Enlil, the primary Jehovah or Yahweh of the Old Testament. In modern times, when it comes to the symbol of the snake, most people in the Western Hemisphere are influenced through the lens of religion and church and not actual history. The book of Genesis tells how a clever talking serpent convinces Eve to eat forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge. She gives the fruit also to Adam. Angry, God casts them out of the Garden of Eden and condemns the serpent to travel upon its belly. The appearance of the biblical serpent is controversial. Genesis does not give an exact description. Some illustrations of the serpent in Eden depict a reptilian humanoid being. The serpent talks to Eve and exhibits intelligence and wile. In some other Jewish legends, the Genesis serpent is a tall, extremely intelligent creature with human arms and legs. He was created by God to be king of all creatures and eat the same food as humans. But his envy of humans, which was the evil within him, caused him to bring about the fall. It is extremely important to understand that Genesis does not equate the serpent with the devil or Satan. The associations were made later by early church fathers, such as Justin Martyr and Tertullian. The serpent later symbolized lies, treachery, and evil, serving as the inspiration for the forked tongue and serpent-tailed representations of the devil. In Christian art and literature, the devil took on snake-like and reptilian features such as scaly skin, a forked tongue, and a long tail. Dragons also became symbols of evil and the devil. But at the opposite end, the highest-ranking order of angels, the seraphim, have serpent associations. Their name is thought to be derived from the Hebrew verb seraph, which means to burn, incinerate, or destroy, and probably refers to the ability of seraphim to destroy by burning. In the Old Testament, the term seraph is applied to fiery serpents. Numbers 21, 6-8 refers to fiery serpents sent by the Lord to bite and kill sinning Israelites. After Moses prayed for forgiveness, he was instructed to set a fiery serpent atop a pole. Whoever was bitten by it, when he looked upon it, would live. Moses made a bronze serpent, which may have been a representation of a seraph angel. Deuteronomy 8:15 refers to the fiery serpents and scorpions in the land of Egypt. 3 Enoch says that the seraphim are so named because they burn the tablets of Satan. Every day, Satan sits down with Samael, prince of Rome, and Dubiel, prince of Persia, to write down the sins of Israel on tablets. Satan gives the tablets to the seraphim to take to God so that God will destroy Israel. But the seraphim know that God does not wish to do so, and so they take the tablets and burn them. In the New Testament, Jesus acknowledged the wisdom of the serpent in his statement, "Be ye therefore wise as serpents, and harmless as doves," in Matthew 10:16. In Gnosticism, which is a dualistic sect, they considered the serpent as the Son of Man, the Savior himself, who initiates humankind into consciousness and raises them up out of a primitive, nature-identified unconsciousness. Gnostic teachings identify Jesus with the serpent in Eden because they were both condemned for giving humans more godlike status. So now that we are caught up with the correct context, what is the spiritual knowledge and freedom that Enki wanted to disseminate through the Brotherhood of the Snake? The most prevalent interpretation of serpent symbolism is that it means wisdom, but the symbolism has a deeper and much more complex meaning. It essentially relates to the complex nature of the human psyche, energy, and our body chemistry. The serpent is an expression of our higher and lower consciousness. The serpent is one of the keys to understanding transcendence to higher states of consciousness and how we tend to fall foul of our subconscious mind. But through the serpent, we can find wisdom to overcome our lower conscious self and discover the higher self, that aspect of our personalities that religions call God. At its deepest level, the serpent is a symbol of rebirth and renewal. Just as a snake sheds its skin, humans have the capacity to defeat old values that no longer serve us and develop improved values. We are able to do this by using the power of our innate wisdom, which enables us to attain self-knowledge and reach enlightenment. The snake is often associated with the underworld and depicts the demonic side of our nature, our base instincts that have been shaped by our experiences and arise from the subconscious mind. But depending where it is placed within esoteric iconography and myth, the serpent also denotes our higher conscious state. In Hindu and Buddhism, for example, it is common to find a seven-headed serpent, the Naga, above the heads of the devas. This denotes enlightened beings, Buddhas. To add to this, the serpent represents the four elements, water, air, earth, and fire, which when combined and balanced emerge as the fifth element of spirit, or evil spirit depending on the values you choose to adopt. Another representation of the serpent is the male and female energies that run up the spinal column of the body, the Pingala and Ida of the Kundalini energy. When the Kundalini is awakened, we are able to overcome challenges more easily and find the balance between duality and singularity. It is at this point when we return to the one true source and understand the meaning of oneness. It is the challenge of each of us to overcome the demonic serpent of our subconscious that leads us into temptation, and fly with the mighty dragon of our higher consciousness so that we can experience the purification of body and mind that comes from absolute transcendence. Man is nature. Of that there is little doubt. Nature is all around us, also not in doubt. Where it gets mystical is the notion that we are intrinsically connected with nature and to each other. This last statement cannot be proven by scientists, although some are trying. You therefore have to put some faith in the mysterious patterns in nature and the unexplainable. The thing is, we are pure consciousness, and the divine source we call God, Allah, Yahweh, the Absolute, and many other names, is where our pure consciousness comes from. And it is extremely important to understand that the Creator God of all is not an Anunnaki or any other Nibiruan. Our physical reality distorts this pure consciousness with the illusion of duality, the symbolic serpent which represents the good and bad aspects of our personality. Many of our viewers already know of the chakra system and Kundalini energy. And you've probably also seen this symbol, right? This is the caduceus that is most commonly associated with Mercury in Greek and Roman iconography. Before Mercury, the Egyptian god Thoth was depicted holding two intertwining snakes, and of course you have learned from our previous presentations that Thoth is also known as Ningisida, who is the son of Enki. Even in the early days of the church, the cross was featured with a snake wrapped around the wooden shaft. You may have also been familiar with Michelangelo's painting of Adam and Eve and the serpent. The painting featured on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel reveals the serpent tail is entwined around the trunk of the tree. Two serpents twine up the caduceus staff of Hermes, the classical god who escorts the souls of the dead and delivers messages to the gods. The caduceus is a symbol of enlightenment and of healing. In modern times, this symbol is used in the logos of medical associations such as the World Medical Association, the American Medical Association, and many other medical associations around the world. However, we are told it is the rod of Asclepius, the Greek god of medicine, but that is typically shown as a single snake around a shaft. Nevertheless, the Kundalini energy, an asset of pure consciousness, can be used for healing, learning, and revitalization. The ancients knew this, and it would seem so do modern institutions. The word Kundalini comes from the Sanskrit word meaning spiral and is often referred to as the coiled serpent. The energy can be released through yoga or meditation and spirals up the spinal column as depicted in the caduceus. The construction of the spine features two holes on either side which allows the energy to pass. The energy is known as Pingala and Ida, male and female energies respectively. Ida and Pingala are depicted as serpents in Hermetic symbolism, whilst the spinal column is the shaft or the rod of caduceus. When you feel the prana energy of the Kundalini, you physically feel it twisting up your back and into the crown chakra like the movements of a snake. Prana is the spiritual energy that resides in the base of the spine which when awakened opens and clears the chakras and reconnects the individual with the divine source. The symbol of the serpent was also prominent in ancient Egypt. Known as the uraeus, it was typically worn on the headdress of pharaohs. In the early years, the uraeus symbolized mastery of the Kundalini and the self. Indeed, the Egyptians were also aware of the Kundalini energy, and the serpent provided the symbolism to depict the two worlds of the physical and astral bodies. Thoth, the bringer of wisdom, is sometimes found holding two snakes. Notably, Thoth became Mercury to the Greeks and Romans, and the caduceus he holds is a clear depiction of the vital energy that is our true essence. The story of Ra and Apep demonstrate the dual natures of our personality. Ra is the sun god, and the dark spirit that threatened to destroy him, Apep, takes the form of a serpent. The serpent also represents good and evil in cultures from all corners of the globe. Legends stemming from native Indian tribes of the Americas reflect this in their depiction of the plumed serpent, also referred to as the creator god and the god of the underworld. A prime example is the serpent god of the native Mesoamericans, Quetzalcoatl to the Aztecs and Kukulkan to the Maya. The gods are typically depicted as a serpent or a dragon in iconography and are considered the primordial god of life, intelligence, and self-reflection. The Aztec creation story recounts how Quetzalcoatl ventured into the underworld and brought dead bones to life by dipping his own blood onto them. In other words, he makes a sacrifice. The snake deity, Kukulkan, is most famously depicted on the staircase of El Castillo in the ancient Mayan settlement of Chichen Itza. On the equinoxes, the plumed serpent appears as a shadow on the temple wall, venturing down in the winter and returning upwards in the spring. The symbolism reflects the death and rebirth of the sun as it orbits around the earth, and is where we get the seasonal names fall and spring. It also reflects the rise and fall of mankind during the course of our lifetimes. You will also find this idea of death and rebirth expressed in symbolism with the dragon or serpent devouring its own tail. All of this symbolism represents the knowledge that Enki wanted humans to possess, and the very reason for the creation of the Brotherhood of the Snake. Unfortunately, the effort was corrupted very early on, and as we stated earlier, the Brotherhood was turned into a chilling weapon of spiritual repression and betrayal, despite the efforts of many sincere humanitarians to bring about true spiritual reform through Brotherhood channels all the way up till today.